Arch Advocate podcast. Boycotts are stupid and very rarely ever work. That's actually a point of fact. I'll give you a good example. We're going to be talking about Patreon and the fact that technically I am boycotting them. But I want to make this personal for everybody. Boycotts tend to do the exact opposite of what they're intended to do. That's across the board. That's normally what happens. You start calling for people to stop doing business in a certain way to punish a particular company or individual or organization. What that tends to do is bring attention to that individual, company, or organization. That tends to work out badly for the people who are staging the boycott. Case in point, what was it, 2011? Something like that. I think it was Chick-fil-A. All right, Chick-fil-A is I believe they are owned, the ownership of Chick-fil-A is Mormons. And if you've ever been to Utah, everything is closed on Sunday, nearly everything. And Chick-fil-A is closed on Sunday. Now, for a fast food restaurant, you have to understand that it is remarkable that they're even still in business, because your two biggest days for doing business are always going to be Saturday and Sunday, and they are closed on 50% of those 2 days. Right? It's a big deal. And yet, they are one of the most successful because their food is delicious, and they support staunchly conservative things. And back in the day, just several years ago, there was a call to boycott Chick-fil-A. And as a result of that, Chick-fil-A has never made more money in a single frame of time than ever. That's what happened. That's typically what happens with a boycott. And there's a metaphysical side of it, like a miraculous thing that happens there, but it works on both sides. So I want to talk about that just really quick. The problem with boycotts is that when you do that and you're vocal about it, what it does is it brings attention to the thing that you're trying to eliminate, right? I made the point before, there was in the 1970s, there was this big push to burn records of devil music people, like the rock band Kiss. And there's footage of it. There's thousands of people that are burning albums, vinyl albums from the band Kiss. And it's like, well, hey, dummy, you had to go buy that album. And that means that you're putting money in the pocket of Gene Simmons and Ace Frehley and all those guys. You know what I mean? Like, you're really shooting yourself in the foot. And furthermore, the news outlets are coming to you and they're giving free advertising to the rock band Kiss, because people tend to be more curious about things that way. That's why when you go downtown on a Friday or Saturday night and you go up, if you're driving past the club, you're going to see a long line outside. The reason for that line is not because there's so many people that are trying to get in and they just can't fit them inside. It's because that club owner knows that it's more valuable to have patrons outside, not spending any money, not buying any drinks, they're not spending any money, they're not having a good time at all. It's more valuable for that club owner to give the impression to everybody who drives by that this is the place to be, because that's what crowds do. This is why I'm going to break down the boycott, if you will, of Patreon, and I'm hoping that I can get this concept into your heart. This is exactly, like, if you're a longtime listener, this is exactly why I don't talk about, or I've been reluctant to talk about guys like Joel Osteen, Creflo Dollar, these televangelist sorts, right? Because if you're new, I'm a Christian, okay? I'm a follower of Jesus Christ, and I don't like those guys. I don't like what they represent. And I believe that they are a damaging force to people who are in a vulnerable state in their faith, right? Because everybody's at their own place on the journey, and there's people that are vulnerable, and I think that those people, Creflo Dollar, Joel Osteen, these kind of people, I think they're bad for those people. but I've been reluctant to talk about it because I don't want to bring any attention. I don't want to run the risk, as slim as it may be, I don't want to run the risk that I'm talking to you now and you're sitting there thinking, I've never heard of Joel Osteen. Who is this Joel Osteen that you speak of? And then you go and you Google it, right? Because that's how that works. Like that's why I don't talk about it. Right? It's not because I'm ashamed of my thoughts or anything. It's like, dude, I don't want to give you anything because I think you're a bad guy. And so I'm just like, the worst thing I can do to those people is keep their name out my mouth. Never talk about them. Don't even bring it up. Right? I've talked about this before. It's like there's a weird thing in the human condition where if you tell somebody to not do something, you increase the likelihood that they're going to do the exact same thing by a lot. That's why, like, when you teach your kids like not to do drugs and don't smoke cigarettes and, stay in school and that sort of thing, like, there's a way that you have to approach that. And if you just run up to them and be like, hey kid, don't do heroin, it's like, dude, that kid's much more likely to do heroin if you don't convey that lesson correctly. And so this is what I want to talk about just really quick on the Patreon thing, because look, Jack Conte is doubling down. All right, he's not. And look, by me pulling my Patreon page, it's not going to affect that guy one little. Well, it's going to affect him one little bit, about $6 a month. Right? This guy's a multi-millionaire, possibly a billionaire, I'm not sure. He's got a lot of money. And I'm pulling, right? Like I'm kind of new to podcasting. I've only been doing it for a year, and I was getting $65 a month on Patreon. Right? That's a lot for me because that pays for almost the entire thing, because it cost me $75 a month to have my podcasting site. So I was almost to the point to where that aspect of this was all being paid for. And me pulling it, it's only taken $6 away from the Patreon company. They're not even going to notice. And when I recommend to you that you go to my Patreon page and close it down yourself, the reason I want to do that is because when you close it out, they're going to ask you why. Why are you leaving? And I'm hoping that you leave a response to that. And if you don't do it, that's fine too, but I will close that account down before they run the credit cards for January. So I'm going to close that down, December 31st. Right? But I want to make this clear, like, when you boycott something, this is why conservative people don't boycott things. Right? And unanimously, like, it's not a concerted effort. It's because conservatives aren't so bored. Like in the case of the boycott of Chick-fil-A, it's like, do you have, looking at all those purple-haired fatties outside Chick-fil-A protesting because they don't like gay marriage? It's like, you have so much time on your hands. There have been all of the evils of the world, say like the fact that there are more people living in slavery today than any other time in the history of the world. There's people in Africa that don't even have access to clean water. There's people in Flint, Michigan, don't have access to clean water. It's like there's all these social evils that need to be fixed, but you have so much time on your hands that you can drive down to your local Chick-fil-A with a protest sign and form a crowd. This is why conservatives don't call for boycotts, because we're busy. Like, we don't have some secret cabal meeting of the conservatives where we all get together and like, hey, let's do or do not boycott this. We don't do that because we don't have time for that. Because nobody has time for that. Nobody does. Conservatives don't boycott because it, like, in a natural way. The natural boycott, right? When it's not fake, because again, keep in mind, boycott Chick-fil-A, Chick-fil-A's profits skyrocket, right? Dick's Sporting Goods, on the other hand, this is the difference, right? Because unfortunately, the word boycott, it means the same no matter how you're using it. It means to stop doing business as a way to punish, right? And I am discontinuing my relationship with Patreon because I cannot, in good conscience, do anything that's going to enrich the lives of people who are silencing other people's voices because of their political ideology or religious ideology or whatever, because they did something that is completely within the law, right? Now, if Sargon of Akkad had called for violence against a particular group, then I would say, okay, Patreon, yeah, good call there. You're not allowed to call for violence. Nobody is. That's even against the law in the United States if you're, listening in from abroad. You're not allowed to do that. And if Sargon of Akkad had done that, Carl, whatever his last name is, I would have said, great, yeah, shut him down. It's against the law. Shut him down and call the cops. You're not allowed to do that. But that's not what he did. And that's not, like these other people that they've deplatformed, that is not what they did either. However, Patreon continues to allow people on their site who are leftists, who do call for violence against people, they continue to allow them to break actual laws. So getting back to Dick's Sporting Goods, so what did Dick's Sporting Goods do? They came out and they said, in support of such and gun regulation and blah, 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 we are no longer going to sell guns and ammunition, right? And then all of a sudden, by the way, there was no call for a boycott. Nobody went on Fox News or The Blaze or Alex Jones or, whatever. Joe Rogan, whoever, nobody went on Adam Carolla and said, hey, everybody, hey, listen, if you're a conservative, don't shop at Dick's Sporting Goods. That didn't happen. And yet, Dick's Sporting Goods' profits just immediately began to sink, and sank big. They are suffering right now. Now, what's the difference between those two? Well, one of them is a signal. A virtue signal, like I'm virtuous because I'm for the gay people to get married, so I'm gonna go make a spectacle of myself in front of Chick-fil-A, right? And what happened there? Chick-fil-A's profits went through the roof. Dick's Sporting Goods, on the other hand, nobody called for a boycott. They just shot themselves in the foot. They said, hey, we're gonna not sell these guns to good people. Right? We're not going to sell these guns. We're not going to sell you guns even to the good people because there's bad people in the world. And so the natural thing there, because conservatives, we're busy. We have stuff we got to do. We don't go stand in front of Dick's and tell people like, hey brother, hey, did you hear, man? These people hate the Second Amendment. No, that's not what happened. What happened is guys like me and you, when it came time to go buy your kids their sleeping bags and their tents for this year's outings, to, camping, and that fishing poles and soccer balls and all that other stuff, we decided, you know what? I think I'm going to go to Cabela's. I think I'm going to go to Sports Authority. I think I'm going to go to REI because I don't like the stance that Dick's Sporting Goods took. And we did it quietly. And we didn't draw any attention to anybody because it was an internal thing. It was about freedom. It was about the Second Amendment. And it was about the stance that Dick's Sporting Goods took. And the craziest thing is like, look, if you're in the sporting goods business, what do you sell? Well, you sell soccer balls and footballs and cleats and hockey gear. Well, who needs those things? Well, kids do. Oh, that's weird. Do kids have money? No. What do kids have? They have parents. Oh, gee, are those parents married in loving relationships? Okay, well, what's the likelihood from just that scenario, who your customer base is? What's the likelihood that they're either atheist or Christian? right? Okay? So you sell soccer, you sell things for children. Children don't have money. Children have parents who have money, and you're hoping to get some of that money. So you should know your customer. You should know your customer base. Who do you think your customer base is? Do you think that they're atheist liberals, or do you think they're conservative Christians? What do you think? Are atheist liberals, is the thing that they're known for is cranking out children and tending to those children once they have them? Or is that, or is the statistical likelihood that those are Christian people? What else do you sell at Dick's Sporting Goods? Camping equipment, hiking equipment, fishing gear, right? Like the level of shoot yourself in the footiness it's off the charts. Whereas like the Chick-fil-A thing, it's like, well, okay, so it's fine. So you have listen, I don't particularly have a lot of respect for the Mormon religion. Mormon people, on the other hand, are great. Boy, you want to talk about people who will genuinely like you. If you ever need a friend, get a Mormon. Those are some very nice people. But as far as their religion goes, it's like, boy, this is a lot of kooky nonsense. I can't believe you people believe this. Right? So, but I'm not going to stop eating Chick-fil-A because the owners are all Mormons. It's like, no, you sell a good product here. It's like that Jim Jeffries joke. Jim Jeffries has this show on Comedy Central. He's a lefty, but he's funny, man. He tells pretty funny jokes. And he tells this joke about Chick-fil-A. He's like, I don't know if what makes this sandwich so delicious is all the gay hatred, but man, I don't care. Like, this is delicious. I'm just going to eat it. Right? You're going to boycott Chick-fil-A because of their political stance? People are going to look at that and think like, okay, I guess I'm not going to eat Chick-fil-A because I'm virtuous and I really believe strongly that gay people ought to get married, and they're against that, and so therefore, they're going to be my enemy. Right? It's like, okay, well then you're left with the choices. And now your choices are, well, okay, why don't you go to McDonald's or Burger King, right? Those are your choices now. You have to go somewhere else. And is anybody else going to serve you a chicken sandwich like Chick-fil-A? No, they are not, because nobody in the business does what they do. So there's kind of that built-in, like, yeah, this isn't going to work, folks. But when it comes to sporting goods, it's like, well, there's Big Five. They sell the exact same thing. Sports Authority. REI sells the exact same thing, only they sell it for about 300% more. By the way, I'm a big fan of REI. Like, it's worth it. Trust me. Sometime I'll do a show on that. But you have all these other options. So here we have Patreon, right? Listen, don't discontinue with Patreon because some podcaster in the Albanian Alps is telling you, like, oh, you should be virtuous and not do it. No. I wouldn't have said anything if I didn't have to. I have to explain why I am taking this virtuous stance. I have to explain it to you because you folks are sending me money on Patreon, and so I have to explain this to you. Like, listen, here's the thing. I will not do anything to enrich the lives of Jack Conte or anybody who works for him because they violated the first order of our freedoms. Our freedom to speak and assemble and exchange ideas, and that's a spiritual matter. And these people came in and they silenced them. Now I can't just turn it off and not tell you why, because you've put, you went onto my Patreon page, put in your credit card details, and I can't just turn it off and then not tell you why. I have to tell you why. But if you, from this moment on, because it's not going to be with me, you're not going to support me through Patreon, but you may see other creators out there, maybe guys that are new like me, or girls, people that are new like me, and you think like, oh, I really like this person's work, I think I'm going to support them. If you're going to turn away from doing business with Patreon or giving money to creators through Patreon, I would prefer that it would be something internal with you, that you understand. Like, no, I'm not gonna do this, not because, you know, Patreon did such a horrible thing, because like in the bigger picture at this point, it's like, well, whatever. You know, he turned off Sargon of Akkad and a few other people. I mean, it's not literally to the point of burning books just yet. It's not the night of the broken glass just yet. But it's certainly moving in that direction. But, you know, not for nothing, it's not there yet. Right? You could take that stand, but what I would ask you to do is internalize it. Right? Make it yours. Make it yours when it's like the same thing when you go to, you know, when you're going to buy your kids their soccer gear for the year, or their hockey gear or whatever, and you have the choice. Is it Sports Authority or is it Dick's? Well, which one of them has been a dick, right? Is it going to be Starbucks this morning, or is it going to be Dunkin' Donuts or Pete's Coffee or whatever the alternative is in your area? Starbucks with their, oh, we're going to hire 10,000 refugees. Again, this is one of the problems with boycotting. This is one of the big problems. So you remember Starbucks, they came out, we're going to hire 10,000 refugees. Well, when you do that, then you separate people. And you've got this one segment of the United States population that says, oh, that's so virtuous. Oh. Then you have another segment of the population that's going to be thinking like, well, where are you going to get 10,000 refugees from? And then those people plus another segment of people that are going to be saying, how come you're not determined to hire 10,000 war veterans who just got back from Afghanistan and would probably appreciate a $45,000 a year job? You know what I mean? Or whatever it is that management at Starbucks people make. I hear they're paid actually not too terribly, not great, but you know what I mean? That's the thing about, like, when you do that, when these companies virtue signal, it's like, well, you're separating yourself. When Dick's Sports, you know, sporting goods came out, they're like, oh, we're not going to sell AR-15s anymore to the type of people who shop here, mothers and fathers of children who are obviously somewhat responsible since they're buying their kids, you know, exercise equipment. We're not going to sell guns to the responsible people. It's like, okay, well, you've just pissed off your entire customer base. Thugs aren't shopping at Dick's. There's no Dick's Sporting Goods in Watts. There's no Dick's Sporting Goods in Compton. You know what I mean? Like you put sporting goods stores in suburban areas where families are. People who have jobs and kids, and spouses, and responsibilities. Dummy. But this Patreon thing, like, I'm going to boycott it, and I'm going to try to be as silent as I can about it, because the more I talk about it, the more I'm bringing attention to them. And I don't want to do that. So just in your mind and in your heart, like as we progress forward through time, we see how crazy everything is getting. We're seeing all of the, you know, again, man, the news. You got to turn it off sometimes, man, because it's all bad. There's so much stuff going on where it's just like, can everybody just stop being so mean to everybody? Can people just actually have a virtue that makes sense to everybody? Like, don't be a liar. Don't steal. Taxation is theft. You know what I mean? Like, things that everybody gets. Instead, you're virtue signaling like, oh, I'm not going to eat at Chick-fil-A because these religious people, they have a thing that they believe. It's like, dude, you knew that they believed that. They're Mormons. You knew that. Settle down. But when it comes to Patreon, again, I know I'm doing it. Doing it again. Every time I mention their name, it shines a light on them. And I don't want to do that. But you have, as in the arc of history, where do you think that's going? Where do you think silencing guys like Carl, whatever his last name is, Sargon of Akkad, an atheist, right? He's an atheist guy. He's a classical liberal, right? You're going to silence that guy. Okay, leftists, like, where do you think this is going? How long until the boot is kicking down your door? Right? Appeasement just means you get eaten last. Right? If you're going to stand there and be silent as this megalomaniacal, what's the word there? Megalomaniac. Somebody who's addicted to power. Like, that's what Jack Conte has done. Like, the power has gotten to his head. He's like, oh, I don't like Sargon of Akkad. I'm going to turn him off. And I don't like, what's her name that went down into the Mediterranean and exposed the fact that the EU is importing militants onto their soil. I don't like her. I'm going to turn her off. It's like, well, that's not your place, mister. That's not your place. And you can make that argument like, oh, well, it's a private company. You can do whatever you want. Yes. It is a private company, and he can do whatever he wants. So can I. Right? This podcast, this is my company. I own it. And I can do whatever I want. And I'm going to turn off that particular avenue that I need right now, because I would rather wait until other qualified people like Jordan Peterson, Sam Harris, Dave Rubin, and all those guys who are going to and are right now in the middle of coming together and putting their considerable wealth into one big pile, and then they're going to pay other people to create a platform where that won't happen. And guess what? Then those people will have my business. And as much as it pains me, as I've said many times before, I don't like Sam Harris. I think he's a kook. I think that the ultimate result of his way of thinking is nihilism. I think that that's bad for people. But at the end of the day, it's like, well, it's your life, dude. It's your life. And if other people are listening to Sam Harris and thinking like, oh, this is legit, it's like, dude, it's your life, man. I'm not responsible for the condition of your soul. I'm responsible for the condition of mine. And this is how I take care of it. And if when those guys set up those platforms so that this doesn't happen in the future, so that we're safeguarded against this, some of my money is going to be going to Sam Harris, and that's going to be painful for me. A little bit, but not as painful as like right now my money is going to Jack Conte. As minimal as it is, my money is going towards a guy who is silencing people's voices and have broken no laws. That's dangerous. That's the show for today. Short one. Don't boycott. Just make up your own mind. Right? I can't stress that enough. I do think boycotting is stupid. But I think making up your own mind to, like if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, would you like to donate to the Ku Klux Klan? You're going to say, no. Are you boycotting them? Technically, yes, but not really. You're just saying, no, I don't want my money going to that. I don't like that. So let it be internal. That's the show for today. If you want to support the show, you can do it on PayPal. You can check out my PayPal link over to archadvocate.com, arch-advocate.com. Please hit subscribe, dude. Hit subscribe, hit share, hit like. Tell all your friends. Thank you very much, and we will talk to you tomorrow.